Hey, what's up, Nerd fam? This is your boy Gashawn. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. So, today we're talking about something that has already passed about like a month and change ago, but I didn't get a chance to talk about it. But I think it's a masterpiece of a show, but still flawed, which might not make a lot of sense, but it's it. Welcome to Derry. And I want to get into detail about why I think that is. So, I think the show was phenomenal from multiple aspects. But there is something that a lot of horror movies and shows have a hard time doing, and that's sticking the landing. And in this aspect, it's really about continuity. So, first and foremost, if you haven't watched this show, do not watch the rest of this because there's going to be massive spoilers. Give you some time to turn it off. Go watch it. Come back to this video. In the meantime, let's just go to it. Okay, I got to start with, first and foremost, the acting. There are a lot of people who don't like to watch shows with child actors because sometimes they have a hard time emoting. Could be lack of life experience, so on and so forth. Haven't had enough time to expand on their art craft. However, in this show, these child actors had to take very, very heavy material. Hell, they were in shows that at this age, this show is when I was this age, my mother wouldn't have let me watch this show. Yet they're acting in it, and they have to deal with heavy themes of death and even responsibility for certain death, because two of the characters, Lily and Ronnie, one of them, because she was born, her mom died in childbirth, feels personally responsible just from being alive. And then the other one feels responsible because her dad had to go in there and get something for her in the factory, and he died in that pickle factory. And the imagery alongside this is so disturbing. You're like, wow, like this is nuts. And obviously, Andy Muschietti, the director of this, made the It movies prior to this, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. So that same vision is there, like just that, not just like scary as far as building up the moment, but also using their personal fears, failures, and whatever to create this imagery. Clearly, this is from It, or Pennywise, whatever you want to call him, is generating this fear so they become more appetizing for him to eat, as we've learned in the movies and all that, right? Great acting from the children. Great acting from Bill Skarsgård, of course. Like, every time he plays as Pennywise, he just adds more and more. And he also gets a chance to play the person who it took the clown identity from, which he did that briefly in the films, but got a chance to really expand on it here, which gives him more. So it's great to see that this gets more and more depth every time they go in there. Nobody has phoned it in. I love the actor that played Dick Halloran. Everyone was awesome. Seeing James Remar again and all that. The mythology, to be able to expand on that, obviously, is a great privilege that Andy Muschietti has, because obviously there's already movies that, the Tim Curry ones. He kind of forged his own way in chapters 1 and 2, and for him to kind of expand on all the stuff that he's done already with Derry is pretty awesome, especially because going backwards, this show is going to be very interesting, because the next 2 seasons are going to be decades going earlier and earlier into the formation of Derry. So we're going to get some really, really cool stuff when it comes to that. As far as those, like the gang that got killed, that they found the bodies of, and also the Ironworks accident, the explosion that killed a lot of children. We're going to get a chance to see that. Even getting a peek of some of that stuff in the opening, where the opening gives us a lot of Easter eggs. This show was also very Easter egg heavy, which I love too, because there's so many different things that you have to pay attention to that you know you're going to come back around to. Now, with all the really good things that I have to say, acting, characters, stakes, because people do die, continuity. The same thing that's cool about this, as far as how it links to chapters 1 and 2, I think is also its detriment, because there are a lot of things that don't really make any sense, and it's especially towards the end. I thought that by the end of this, a whole bunch of these children will be dead. All the Native Americans will be dead. There'll be a lot of severed connections. And here's why. If this is truly taking place, that leads in a time frame that leads to it chapters 1 and 2, and it's not some other timeline like how it is for like in Marvel, where they go this is not the same timeline, it's similar, but it leads off. Then we've got some questions that we have to answer. Marge knows about Richie, right? Now that she does, why wouldn't she have been very, very aware of what's happening, especially because the entire town is now aware of the clown, or at least what's happening. Something has happened, right? So why wouldn't she have been involved? She didn't leave Derry, so she would have remembered, because they've already established that once you leave Derry, you forget, and then when you come back, you get the memories back. That happened to James Remar's character, even in this series, and it happened to all the characters that came back in It Chapter 2. So she should have been heavily involved. Leroy, he's old in the Chapter 1 and 2 series. Why wouldn't he stay on that farm? Wouldn't he know, oh, this is 27 years, kids are going missing, it's back. The Native Americans, who, if they would have gotten killed in this, I would have understood why we didn't see them in It Chapter 1 and 2, because they were literally there. They had like a whole task force to pretty much take care of this thing in case it were to come back. And there was nothing of that sort in It Chapter 1 and 2. But that would have made sense if for some reason they all died. Like, you know, Pennywise, when he got free from that, when they removed that pillar, he just goes after them first. That would make a lot of sense. But that didn't happen. Also, those children that were in the school that saw Pennywise kill them, kill the principal, they would have all seen that. Why isn't that being explained? It doesn't make sense as to why that just got swept under the rug. Not everybody left Derry. Some people stayed in Derry. So they would want to figure out what happened. What killed that milkman? What killed this? How did all of us wind up on this ice? We got dragged over here, because even though when you get put into that trance, you still remember all those things. It's a lot that's not explained here. And that's where the major flaws go into, because when it ended that way, it's impossible for It Chapter 1 and 2 to be this. And that's where those heavy flaws are. But it doesn't actually ruin the entire show, because it's a good show to watch. But as far as how it goes into 1 and 2, it does ruin that continuity a bit. The whole motive that the military had about we should use this for fear and whatever, that doesn't make any sense, because you can't control it. It's not like James Remar's character has no idea what this thing is able to do. He does know. So that's why it didn't make any sense for him to say, like, oh, like, we can use this to, calm people, to kind of like wrangle them in. It doesn't work like that. I thought when they were taking that piece of the spaceship and they were going to throw it in there, they were going to melt it down and make a bullet or something, like make a weapon out of it so they can kill it. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But for him to do that was just, there wasn't a lot of thinking into that storyline. But everything else, what happened at the black spot, Richie's death, there were a lot of emotional weight. They did so well in this show. Way more good things than that major flaw. It is a major flaw, I can't say that. But it still does so much well. And the further they get from this, I think the better the shows are going to become, because they don't have to rely on the connections to It Chapter 1 and 2. It can kind of just be itself. And I think we're really in for 2 more excellent seasons. What do you think about this? Oh, one more thing. I think that these actors, and if there's even more child actors, which they might do, but they are going to do it, whatever child actors they get here, I think if they build it the same way, it's going to be much better than what happened in Stranger Things. I don't think Stranger Things is bad, but I think that for the amount of time, the short amount of time they've had here, and what they were able to carry, and they're younger too, I think it's night and day. I have to give it to these child actors because of what they're doing. They're excellent. We can just call them actors. Forget the child thing, and they did an excellent job. That's all I gotta say. Let me know what you think. What did you think about this? Did you love it? Hate it? Comparison to Stranger Things? Let's go Enter the Nerd.